Okay, so today we're going to do lab 9, and the text of the I put the text and the data in different links this week. I did it for a few of the next week. All right, so today we're going to basically do a simple, we'll solve a simple problem using buffer and overlay. And so you're going to, first off, you're just going to kind of experiment with buffers. You're going to take rows, you're going to buffer them using a fixed distance. Okay? Then you're going to buffer these lakes using variable distance buffers, kind of like how we did with the points that I showed in class. All right. I'm going to look at some of the options, whether you dissolve it or not. And in order to create your variable distance buffer, you are going to have to adjust the attribute table. So you're going to see in the attribute table 3 different size classes, and you're going to create a new attribute that is going to have 50, 150, and 100. Then, once you do that, you'll be able to change this field to that new field that you create. So you'll have a new field called buff dist, and you're basically doing a calculated field to get these values in there based on this size class. All right. Then you'll do your buff dist. So then you'll have your roads, and you'll have your road buffers, and you'll have your lakes and your lake buffers. So you have both the roads and the lake buffers. You could symbolize them like this. This is just choosing, a hash symbol for the lake buffers, blue for the lakes, green for the roads, light green for the road buffers. Okay. Then you're going to do some overlay. You're going to do some overlay between these layers that you create to kind of say, okay, which areas are close to roads and close to lakes, and so on. So in order to do that effectively, and in order to see the results, it's going to help you comprehend it more, you're going to create a new field for both your road buffers and your lake buffers. So this new field that you create in your lake buffers is called, it stands for inside lake buffers. This one stands for inside road buffers. So you're having a new attribute in both your roads and your lakes. So that when you do the overlay, you'll have these attributes, all of the attributes from both data sets come over. And so if you, in your final product, or after your overlay, anywhere where there's a 1 for the inside lake buffers, that means that it's inside of a lake buffer. Anywhere where there's a 1 for inside road buffers means that you're inside of a road buffer. So if there's a row that has a 1 in both categories, it's inside both buffers. What if it has a 0 or nothing in the road buffers, but a 1 in the lakes buffers? What does that mean in the overlay polygon? It's got a 1 in the roads buffers and a 0 in the lakes buffers. What does that mean? Do you think you're inside of a road buffer or a lake buffer? Or both? What's that? Yes. If there's a 1 in the roads buffer, you're inside the road buffer. And a 0 in the lakes buffer means you're not in the lakes buffer, or no data. Okay? 1 or 0, I mean 0 or no data. So that's why you're doing this. So that in the output data, in the final data set, when you have -1, 0, anything that's not 1 means that it's outside of the lakes buffer. So in this case, you've selected areas that are inside road buffer equals 1 and inside lakes buffer equals 1. Sorry, reverse what I said, but it doesn't really matter. Inside of the lakes buffer and inside of the roads buffer, they both have to equal 1. So you're selecting all those areas that are inside of a roads and a lake buffer. So in other words, those are the areas that are close to both roads and lakes at the same time. Okay? And basically you're going to create a new data set that shows those areas. These areas are inside both the roads and the lakes. They're in both of those areas. So if our question had anything to do with areas that were close to roads and lakes, we would be answering that question. Those might be, in this case, they're saying those could be potential areas for parks. Because they're close to roads, we don't have to build a new road to our park. But they're also close to the lake, so we could set up picnic tables and people could hang out by the lakes. Okay? So that's an example of how it could be useful. All right? The last thing you're going to do is to calculate the area of these polygons, the total area of these polygons. So it's going to walk you through one way to do that. One way to do that is to simply create a new field and to calculate the area of all those polygons, and then to summarize them. Get the statistics. Sorry. Well, you can summarize them. That'll actually work too. But statistics does it faster. So it summarizes all of that column. Hectares is a metric measurement of area. So you're going to get a number, and in this case, you're going to put the number of hectares right down here for all of these areas. Okay? So that's once you have done that, that's the first part of the lab. Okay, little note here. If you're using a shapefile, it doesn't automatically calculate areas. However, if you were using a file geodatabase, it's one bonus to a file geodatabase. It always calculates the area of every polygon just by itself. You don't get to choose the units. It's just in whatever units your projection's in. So it would be square meters for this data, which is an easy conversion to hectare. But anyway, okay. So, all right. Okay, so the next part of the lab is just using the same data and taking it a little bit further. Okay? All right. So the next thing that you're going to do is actually do an overlay that is going to simulate the erase tool. Now, the text in the lab assumes that you don't have erase, which was actually true 2 or 3 versions ago. But they changed the erase tool. I'm sorry, not the erase tool. They changed the licensing of the student version to include, to be the highest level. So it's not an ARC view license anymore. It's the highest advanced license. So you could actually just use the erase tool if you wanted to. However, I think that it's a good exercise because it actually walks you through what I was trying to explain. That if you do a union, after you do a union, if you remove part of the union, you can get the same thing as an erase. The other reason why it's useful is that if you go out into the workforce, it's very likely that, well, not very likely, it's possible that at least some of you will go to work for an organization that only purchases the lower level license, which only includes union, it doesn't include a raise. And so you'll get an idea of what's going on, and you see that it's really only an extra few minutes to do this. Actually, and it's not a computer-intensive operation, because all you're doing is selecting. You're doing a union and then a select, and it's the same as an erase. And this walks you through it. Okay. Right. So you're basically removing the publicly owned land from your acceptable areas. So here's your acceptable areas for the parks. Here's the publicly owned land. And you're removing the publicly owned land from your acceptable areas. And I said parks. They're actually looking for camps. They also only want parcels that are of a certain size. They want too small parcels. So you're gonna create a map of the final acceptable areas. They're not too small, and they don't have any public land included. And that's what your final map is going to be. All right. Another thing to watch out for is that what we're doing right here is we're building toward a lab that is not going to have a lot of explanation. It'll say, you know, you're going to have to do a intersect or a union, and it's not going to have all of the examples. So the final lab in the course is going to be like that. So you need to like store up these skills as you go through. Now here, the second map also doesn't have an example of the second map to turn in, but the second map should look similar to this, but have this sort of data on it, and it should include the area measurement of the suitable campgrounds on private land in Hector. All right. Do you have any questions? I'm sure some of you have already worked through a lot of it, so if there are any questions, let us know, Ella or I, and as you work through it. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and I'll upload those. I'll upload those immediately.